closet. Now you see, Connor stuck me in that horrible back office for a couple times, and apparently he did listen to some of my complaints and observations. I'm back out in the world again, and it's so nice. Now I'm probably, if I bore myself in the course of this afternoon, don't be surprised if I turn around and start checking out the volumes behind me. There's no place I'd rather be than in a bookstore. It's heaven. Now, having gotten that out of my system, and also to remind you, you know, I've been listening to an awful lot of political reportage recently, and I love when the pundits come back on and they're talking, but they've always got a backdrop of books. And guess what I'm doing? I should be listening to what they have to say. I'm not. I'm checking out the titles on their books. I want to see if they're well read my way, or if they've gone off on a tangent somewhere. But it's very appropriate. We've got the theater music section right behind me. So most of those are books I like and I'm familiar with. Today is Wednesday. Wednesday is Poetry Day. Oh boy, do I have something wonderful for you. The collected poetry of Nikki Giovanni, 1968 to 1998, with an introduction by Virginia Fowler. And let me get the full book in there. You can see what this book is like. And again, as I've reminded you many times, do look to the back of the book, because there's some interviews and interesting bits and pieces back there that are more about Nikki Giovanni. Now, I'm going to read you from the, very briefly from the introduction. The topicality of many of Giovanni's poems grounds them in the historical moment in which they were written, even as the emotional and intellectual responses to specific events transcend the particular and become universal. Although such topicality is frequently disparaged by literary critics, it is central to Giovanni's conception of poetry and the poet. Poetry, she has written, is but a reflection of the moment. The universal comes from the particular. Further, she has stated that I have even gone so far as to think one of the duties of this profession is to be topical, to try to say something about the times in which we are living and how we both view and evaluate them. This conception of the poet and poetry is consistent with the aesthetic theories of the Black arts movement, from which Giovanni was one of the most popular and controversial young writers to emerge. These writers sought to create, in the words of Amiri Baccat, an art that would actually reflect Black life and its history and legacy of resistance and struggle. Giovanni herself connects the importance of topicality in poetry to the tradition of the African griot. Like the griots, she writes, Black American poets have traveled the length and breadth of the planet, singing our song of the news of the day, trying to bring people closer to the truth. Her poems, thus, often speak directly about specific events or people, giving expression to the emotions they provoke and disclosing the realities and truths that underlie them, as she sees them. Giovanni does not believe, however, that the poet is a god or that the poet has visionary powers beyond those of people who are not poets or writers. She also denies the power of poetry to change the world. As she has stated, I don't think that writers ever changed the mind of anybody. I think we always preach to the saved. What then is poetry? And why does she write it? The answer to those questions are inextricably tied to Giovanni's consciousness of her identity as a Black American and to her recognition of the struggle of Black Americans to find a voice that would express themselves and their realities. The African slave, bereft of his gods, his language, his drums, searched his heart for a new voice. Under sun and lash, the African sought meaning in life on earth and the possibility of life hereafter. They shuffled their feet, clapped their hands, gathered a collective audible breath to release the rhythms of the heart. We affirmed in those dark days of chattel, through the white nights of emancipation, that all we had was a human voice to guide us and a human voice to answer the call. Giovanni's poetry, as well as her prose, represents her own efforts to give voice to her vision of truth and reality as honestly as she can, because she has said, the only thing you bring is your honesty. The truth in her poetry speaks then, is always the truth as she honestly sees it. And this honesty of expression is what for her determines that her poetry is in fact art. I like to think that if the truth has any bearing on art, my poetry and prose is art because it's truthful. Articulating through poetry her vision of reality is the equivalent of the slave's recognition that their survival depended on their finding a human voice to guide us and a human voice to answer the call. The loneliness inherent in the human condition is, Giovanni has said, assuaged by art, for we are less lonely when we connect, and art is a connection. I like being a link. I hope the chain will hold. This is a marvelous introduction, and I'm not reading the whole thing to you, but I'm going to finish the last paragraph, and this was written by Virginia Fowler in July of 1995. She is the definitive poet of the people. The significant body of work collected here will allow readers to follow her development as a poet and as a thinker. But more than anything, this collection dramatizes Giovanni's dynamism, her refusal to continue journeying down familiar poetic paths, her commitment to growth and to change. To borrow from her own words in Stardate, we might well say that this is not just a collection of poems, but a celebration of the road we have traveled, and a prayer for the roads yet to come. Oh, please take this book home and read it. There's such wisdom here. And now I'm just going to dip randomly into these poems. I've had more fun with them. No Name, poem number 2. Bitter black bitterness, black bitter bitterness, bitterness, black brothers, bitter, black, get blacker, get bitter, get black bitterness. Now, on the tongue, is that not delicious? I'm not lonely. I'm not lonely. Sleeping all alone? Oh, you think I'm scared, but I'm a big girl. I don't cry or anything. I have a great big bed to roll around in and lots of space, and I don't dream bad dreams like I used to have, that you were leaving me anymore. Well, now that you're gone, I don't dream, and no matter what you think, I'm not lonely, sleeping all alone. I've got to show you something. She takes a page from E.E. Cummings, and I don't know how well you can see this, but the I's in this are all lowercase. And guess what that's done to me? It's forced me to think about these poems and about the person whose voice I am replicating in a different way. Word poem, perhaps worth considering. As things be, come, let's destroy. Then we can destroy what we be. Come, let's build what we become when we dream. House cleaning. I always liked house cleaning, even as a child. I dug straightening the cabinets, putting new paper on the shelves, washing the refrigerator inside, out, and unfortunately, this habit has carried over. And I find I must remove you from my life. Oh, what an excellent speech. Someday I'll use that. Kidnap poem. Ever been kidnapped by a poet? Oh, if I were a poet, I'd kidnap you, put you in my phrases and meter, you to Jones Beach, or maybe Coney Island, or maybe just to my house, lyric you in lilacs, dash you in the rain, blend into the beach to complement my sea, play the lyre for you, ode you with my love song, anything to win you, wrap you in the big red, black, green, show you off to mama. Yeah, if I were a poet, I'd kidnap you. You can't kidnap the willing. All I gotta do, sit and wait. Sit and wait, and it's gonna find me. All I gotta do is sit and wait. If I can learn how, what I need to do is sit and wait, because I'm a woman. Sit and wait. What I gotta do is sit and wait, because I'm a woman, it'll find me. You get yours, and I'll get mine. If I learn to sit and wait, you got yours, I want mine. And I'm gonna get it, because I gotta get it, because I need to get it. If I learn how, thought about calling for it on the phone, ask for a delivery, but they didn't have it. Thought about going to the store to get it, walked to the corner, but they didn't have it. Called your name in my sleep, sitting and waiting, thought you would wake me. Called your name, lying in my bed. Oh, but you didn't have it. Oh, offered to go get it, but you didn't have it. So I'm sitting. All I know is sitting and waiting, waiting and sitting, because I'm a woman. All I know is sitting and waiting, because I gotta wait for it to find me. Poem for Flora. When she was little and colored and ugly, with short straightened hair and a very pretty smile, she went to Sunday school to hear about Nebuchadnezzar, the king of the Jews. And she would listen. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the fire, and she would learn how God was neither north nor south, east or west, with no color. But all she remembered was that Sheba was black and comely. And she would think, I want to be like that. Legacies. Her grandmother called her from the playground. Yes, ma'am. I want you to learn how to make rolls, said the old woman proudly. But the little girl didn't want to learn how, because she knew that even if she couldn't say it, that would mean when the old one died, she would be less dependent on her spirit. So she said, I don't want to know how to make no rolls, with her lips poked out. And the old woman wiped her hands on her apron, saying, Lord, these children. And neither of them ever said what they meant. And I guess nobody ever does. That sent rockets through my mind. The world is not a pleasant place to be. The world is not a pleasant place to be without someone to hold and be held by. A river would stop its flow if only a stream were there to receive it. An ocean would never laugh if clouds weren't there to kiss her tears. The world is not a pleasant place to be without someone. Untitled. How's that for a title? There is a hunger often associated with pain that you feel when you look at someone you used to love and enjoyed loving and want to love again, though you know you can't, that gnaws at you as steadily as a mosquito. Some Michigan summer churning his wings through your window screen because the real world, made up of baby clothes to be washed, food to be cooked, lullabies to be sung, smiles to be glowed, hair to be plaited, ribbons to be bowed, coffee to be drunk, books to be read, tears to be cried, loneliness to be born, says you are a strong woman. And anyway, he never thought you'd really miss him. We stood there waiting on the corners, in the bars, on the stoops, in the pews, by the Cadillacs, for buses, wanting for love, watching to see if hope would come by. We stood there, hearing the sound of police sirens and fire engines, the explosions, and babies crying, the gas escaping, and the roaches breeding, the garbage cans falling, and the stairways creaking. We listened to the books opening and hearts shutting, the hands rubbing, the bodies sweating. We were seeing the revolution screeching to a halt, trying to find a clever way to be empty. My house. I only want to be there to kiss you as you want to be kissed. When you need to be kissed, where I want to kiss you, because it's my house and I plan to live in it. I really need to hug you when I want to hug you, as you like to hug me. Does this sound like a silly poem? I mean, it's my house, and I want to fry pork chops and bake sweet potatoes and call them yams, because I run the kitchen and I can stand the heat. I spent all winter in carpet stores, gathering patches so I could make a quilt. Does this really sound like a silly poem? I mean, I want to keep you warm. And my windows might be dirty, but it's my house. And if I can't see out sometimes, they can't see in either. English isn't a good language to express emotions through. Mostly I imagine, because people try to speak English instead of trying to speak through it. I don't know. Maybe it is a silly poem. Hey, I'm saying it's my house, and I'll make fudge and call it love and touch my lips to the chocolate warmth and smile at old men and call that revolution. Because what's real is really real. And I still like men in tight pants, because everybody has something to give. And more important, needs something to take. And this is my house, and you make me happy, so this is your poem. What an epiphany. Swaziland. I am old and need to remember you are young and need to learn. If I forget the words, will you remember the music? I hear a drum speaking of a stream. The path is crossing the stream. The stream is crossing the path. Which came first? The drums ask the music. Is with the river. If we meet, does it matter that I took a step toward you? The words ask, are you fertile? And the music says, let's dance. I am old and need to remember you are young and want to learn. Let's dance together. Let's dance together. Let's dance together. Poetry. Poetry is motion, graceful as a fawn, gentle as a teardrop, strong like the eye, finding peace in a crowded room. We poets tend to think our words are golden, though emotion speaks too loudly to be defined by silence. Sometimes, after midnight or just before the dawn, we sit, typewriter in hand, pulling loneliness around us, forgetting our lovers or children who are sleeping, ignoring the weary weariness of our own logic to compose a poem. No one understands it. It never says, love me, for poets are beyond love. It never says, accept me, for poems seek not acceptance, but controversy. It only says, I am, and therefore I concede that you are too. Poems, pure energy, horizontally contained between the mind of the poet and the ear of the reader. It does not sing. Discard the ear. for poetry is song. If it does not delight, discard the heart, for poetry is joy. If it does not inform, then close off the brain, for it is dead. If it cannot heed the insistent message that life is precious, which is all we poets, wrapped in our loneliness, are trying to say. Oh, as a former resident of New York, I graduated from NYU. I still love the city. And she does too. Listen to this. The New Yorkers. In front of the bank building after 6 o'clock, the gathering of bag people begins. In cold weather, they huddle around newspapers. When it is freezing, they get cardboard boxes. Someone said they are all rich eccentrics. Someone is, of course, crazy. The man and his buddy moved to the truck port in the adjoining building. Most early evenings, he visits his neighbors, awaiting the return of his friends from points unknown to me. They seem to be a spontaneous combustion, these night people. They evaporate during the light of day, only to emerge at evening glow, as if they had never been away. I am told there are people who live underground, in the layer between the subways and the pipes that run them. They have harnessed the steam to heat their corner and cook their food, though there is no electricity, making them effectively moles. The 20th century has seen 2 big wars and 2 small ones. The automobile and the SST, telephones, satellites in the sky, men on the moon, and spacecraft on Jupiter. How odd to also see the people of New York City living in the doorways of public buildings as if this is an emerging nation. No, of course, it is. Look at the old woman who sits on the 57th Street and 8th Avenue selling pencils. I don't know where she spends the night. She sits summer and winter, snow or rain, humming some white religious song. She must weigh over 250 pounds. The flesh on her legs has stretched like a petite pair of stockings onto a medium frame. Beyond its ability to fit, there are tears and holes of various purples in her legs. Things and stuff ooze from them, drying and running again. There is never, though, a smell. Oh, she does not ask you to buy a pencil, nor will her eyes condemn your health. It's easy, really, to walk by her. Unlike the man in front of Tiffany's, she holds her pencils near her knees. You take or not, well, depending upon your writing needs. He, on the other hand, is blind, and walking his German shepherd dog. His sign says, "There but for the grace of God goes you." And there is a long explanation of his condition. It's rather easy for the Tiffany shopper to see his condition. I mean, he is black. Uptown, 125th Street, is an old, blind, black woman. She is out only in good weather and clothes. Her house is probably spotless, as Southern ladies are wont to keep house, and her wig is always on straight. "You got something for me?" she called. "What do you want?" I asked. "What's your name? I know your family." "No, you don't," I said, laughing. "You don't know anything about me. You that Italian poet, ain't you? I know your voice. I seen you on the television." I peered closely into her eyes. "You didn't see me, or you'd know I'm black." "Let me feel your hair. If you black, hold down your head." I did, and she did. "Got something for me?" she laughed. "You felt my hair. That's good luck. Good luck is money, child," she said. "Good luck is money." Here's a poem. Lorraine Hansberry. I'm going to read some of it, not all of it, but this has particular relevance to me. Lorraine Hansberry wrote a play, To Be Young, Gifted, and Black. I was in it. It was performed at the Fulton Opera House in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, many decades ago. I mean, so long ago, I actually had hair. And we not only did it in Lancaster, two of the black roles were played by Ruby Dee and Ossie Davis's son and daughter here in Lancaster. But we then took the play to Mount Vernon outside of New York City and did it there. And since that time, lo, those many, many, many years ago, I have been an admirer of Lorraine Hansberry. It's intriguing to me that bookmaker is a gambling, an underworld, term somehow associated with that which is both illegal and dirty. Bookmakers and those who play with them are dreamers, are betting on a break, a lucky streak, that something will come their way, something good, something clean, something wonderful. We who make books, we who write our dreams, confess our fears, and witness our times are not so far from the underworld, are not so far from illegality, are not so far from the root, the dirt, the heart of the matter. Writers, I think, live on that fine line between insanity and genius, either scaling the mountains or skirting the valleys, riding that lonely train of truth with just enough of the player in us to continue to hope for the species. Writers are perhaps congenital hypocrites. I don't think preachers, priests, rabbis, and ayatollahs are hypocritical because they have tubular vision, are indeed myopic. Well, they know the answer before you ask the question. But the writer, the painter, the sculptor, the creator, those who work with both the mind and the heart of mankind have no reason to be hopeful. We have, in fact, no right to write the happy ending or the love poem. No reason to sculpt David or paint like Charles White. We who have seen all sides of the coin, front, the back, the ribbed edge, know what the ending will surely be. Yet we speak to and of courage, love, hope, something better in mankind. When we are perfectly honest with ourselves, we cannot justify our faith, yet faith we do have and continue to share. Life teaches us not to regret, not to spend too much time on what might have been. It is neither emotionally nor intellectually possible for me to dwell on might have beens. I have a great love of history and antiques. The past is there to instruct us. I am socially retarded, so I hold on to old friends. Oh, I like to be surrounded by that which is warm and familiar. Yet, I'm sorry, I never met Lorraine Hansberry. I vividly understand that a writer is not the book she made any more than the child is the print of his parents. Many of us are personally paranoid, generally uncommunicative, and basically unnice, just like most people. But I think Lorraine must have been one of those wonderful humans who, seeing both sides of the dilemma and all sides of the coin, still called heads when she tossed, and maybe in her gamble never came up to snake eyes. It's not that she wrote beautifully and truthfully, though she did. It's not just that she anticipated our people and their reactions, though she did. She also, when reading through and between the lines, possessed that quality of courage to say what had to be said to those who needed to hear it. If writers are visionary, her ministry was successful. She made it possible for all of us to look a little gentle, deeper. The drum. The drums, parum, the rat-tat of drums. The Pied Piper, after leading the rats to death, took the children to dreams. Parum, parum. Big bass drums, the kettles roar, the sound of animal flesh resounding against the wood. Parum, parum. Kunta Kinte was making a drum when he was captured. Parum. Thoreau listened to a different drum. Rat-tat-tat, parum. King said, just say I was a drum major for peace. Parum, parum, rat-tat-tat, parum. Drums of triumph. Drums of pain. Drums of life. Funeral drums. Marching drums. Drums that call, parum, parum. The drums that call, rat-a-tat. The drums are calling, parum, parum, rat-a-tat, parum. A poem for Langston Hughes. You all have figured out he is one of my favorites, and I keep returning and finding him again. And here he is. Nikki Giovanni talks about him. Diamonds are mined. Oil is discovered. Gold is found. But thoughts are uncovered. Wool is sheared, silk is spun, weaving is hard, but words are fun. Highways span. Bridges connect. Country roads ramble. But I suspect if I took a rainbow ride, I could be there by your side. Metaphor has its point of view. Allusion and illusion too. Meter, verse, classical, free. Poems are what you do to me. Let's look at this one more time, since I've put this rap to rhyme. When I take my rainbow ride, you'll be right there at my side. Hey bop, hey bop, hey bop, ree bop. Now, truly, I'm almost coming to the end, but I love this poetess, and I can't avoid sharing as much of her as I can possibly get away with. This is a poem that was written commemorating the 10th anniversary of the slave memorial at Mount Vernon. And it's called, But Since You Finally Asked. No one asked us what we thought of Jamestown in 1619. They didn't even say, welcome, you're home. Or even a pitiful, I'm sorry, but we just can't make it without you. No, no one said a word. They just snatched our drums, separated us by language and gender, and put us on blocks where our beauty, like our dignity, was ignored. No one said a word in 1776 to us about freedom. The rebels wouldn't pretend. The British lied. We kept to a space where we owned our souls, since we understood, another century would pass before we owned our bodies. But we raised our voices in a mighty cry to the heavens above for the strength to endure. No one says what I like about your people, then takes off the wonder of the wonderful things we're given. Our song to God, our strength to the earth, our unfailing belief in forgiveness. I know what I like about us is that we let no one turn us around. Not then, not now. We plant our feet on higher ground. I like who we were and who we are. And since someone has asked, let me say, I am proud to be a Black American. I am proud that my people labored honestly with forbearance and dignity. I am proud that we believe, as no other people do, that all are equal in his sight. We didn't write a constitution. We lived one. We didn't say we the people, we are one. We didn't have to add as an afterthought, under God. We turn our faces to the rising sun, knowing a new day is always beginning. And finally, a wonderful poem called Stardate number 18628.190. This is not a poem. This is hot chocolate at the beginning of spring, topped with hand-whipped double cream, a splash of brandy to give it sass, and just a little cinnamon to give it class. This is not a poem. This is a summer quilt, a log cabin pattern. See the corner piece? That was grandmother's wedding dress. Oh, that was grandpapa's favorite Sunday tie. That white strip there is the baby who died. Oh, Mommy had pneumonia, so that red flannel shows the healing. This does not hang from museum walls, nor will it sell for thousands. This is here to keep me warm. This is not a sonnet, though it will sing, precious Lord, take my hand. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound. Go down, Moses, way down to the past, way up to the future. It will swell with the voice of Marian Anderson, lilt on the arias of Leonatine, dance on the trilling of battle, do the dirty, dirty with Bessie, moan with Dinah Washington, rock and roll through the 60s, wrap its way into the 90s, and go on out into space with Etta James saying, at last. No, this is not a sonnet, but the truth of the beauty that the only authentic voice of planet Earth comes from the black soil, tilled and mined by the daughters of the diaspora. This is a rocking chair. Rock me gently into the bosom of Abraham. This is a bus seat. No, I'm not going to move today. Oh, this is a porch where they sat spitting at fireflies, telling young Alex the story of the African This is a hook rug to cover the dirt floor. This is an iron pot with the leftover vegetables, making a slow cooking soup. This is pork, simmering, chittling, surprising everybody with our ability to make a way out of no way. This is not rest when we are weary, nor comfort when we are sad. It is laughter when we are in pain. It is remind when we are confused. It is keep climbing, child, when the road takes an unfair turn. It is don't let nobody turn you around. When our way is dark, it is the faith of our mothers who plaited our hair, put Vaseline on our faces, polished our run-down shoes, patched our dresses, wore sweaters so we could wear coats, who welcomed us and our children when we were left alone to rear them, who said, get your education and nobody can put you back. No, this is not a poem. No, it is a celebration of the road we have traveled. It is a prayer for the roads yet to come. This is an explosion, the original Big Bang that makes the world a hopeful, loving place. This is the Black woman. In all our trouble and glory, in all our past history and future forbearance, in all that ever made love a possibility, this is about us, bleached and natural, braided and straightened hair, made up or beaten up faces, tall, short, stately, bent, CC riders, junkies, whores, wives, mothers, grandmothers, aunts, working in the home or outside, working in the system or outside, working, praying, working to survive, giving pride, giving succor, giving voice, giving encouragement, giving whatever we can give. This is a flag that we placed over Peter Salem and Peter Poole, the 54th Regiment from Massachusetts. All the men and women lynched in the name of rape, Emmett Till, Medgar Evers, Malcolm X, Martin Luther King Jr. This, a banner we fly for respect, dignity, the assumption of integrity, for a future generation to rally around. With such words, and all that I read, oh, there are so many more to read, this gives us hope that there is a way, a destiny at the end of our journey. Thank you for sharing Poetry Wednesday. See you on Friday, a much shorter version, I promise.